Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, November 25th, and Larry Johnson is here with us. Welcome back, Larry.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure as always. Let's get started, Larry, with what's going on right now in the United States. Do you think that this missile attack, this new hypersonic missile attack on Ukraine, has sent enough messages, sent enough uh, political message to the Biden administration to not to escalate the situation in Ukraine?
Uh, Outwardly, if you judge it by what people are saying, and not just in the Biden administration, but some of the knuckleheads that Trump has appointed, uh, they don't get it. But the military does. The military is, I think, alarmed and frightened because what Russia showed last week is a game changer. This is like at the end of World War II when the United States dropped the atomic bomb. It introduced a new kind of weapon system that nobody else in the world has and that there is no counter to it. This thing is remarkable. And the press has gone out of its way to try to minimize it, downplay it, pretend that nothing happened. Nothing, nothing to see here. Move along. But this weapon had the effect, the blast effect of a nuclear bomb, without the radiation, without the fire, and without the storm winds, the hurricane-like winds that would accompany the blast wave as it rolled out. It was able to penetrate underground, and it has turned the place into dust. I initially was skeptical of that, but then I listened to a recording of someone who had spoken to a woman who had worked at that plant, and she'd gone back, and she says there's nothing left. I thought, oh, maybe hyperbole, but then I heard from somebody who's in a position to know, who said exactly the same thing. So the U.S. military and the U.S. intelligence community, the military intelligence in particular, they know that the Russians got something, and they're not even sure what it is. That's the point. They keep coming up with, oh, it could be this old missile, or it could be no. This was brand new, and you had you had Ted Postal on, and I think he made it pretty clear. I don't know what this is. So when Ted doesn't know what it is, that's pretty good warning sign that we've entered new territory.
Larry, do you think that the Ukrainian attack on Russia using ATACMS and missiles, did the Biden administration know about that? Because we've learned that they've given some sort of permission to Ukrainians to use that, but did they allow it to use them? Because it was all rhetoric in the mainstream media, but we haven't heard from the Biden administration so far if they literally led them to do that.
Yeah, no, they absolutely knew. Look, my understanding is that U.S. military personnel using classified data from satellites, have to actually program the GPS on these systems. That it's nothing that you just turn it over to the Ukrainians and let them do it. At least that's the story that's been out there. Now, if that's not true, okay, I have no way of knowing, but I'm assuming that that is true. So that means the United States knew that this had happened, and more importantly, it's not that they were involved in making it happen; it's that they're involved now in making sure it doesn't happen again. Despite all the tough talk coming out of Washington and out of London and out of France, oh, we're going to do this, and the Russians can't make us back down. They haven't launched again, and they've got the wherewithal and the capability to launch. You got to ask why. There was a lot of furor. I guess frantic running around on Friday afternoon when there was a concern that the more ATACMS had been launched into Kursk. But it turns out that was really a false story. I think it was put out there, I think, perhaps to try to portray, see, Putin promised he'd retaliate immediately, and he hasn't done anything, so therefore he's weak. But that story died off pretty quickly. So what we're seeing right now is the West is standing back, trying to say, do we twist the tail? Do we run the risk? Excuse me, my nose is itching.
Yeah.
Because Putin made it very clear. He said, if you continue to do this, we will strike back immediately. Now, but we're going to tell you where we're going to strike back. We're going to give you warning so you can get your people out of there. And then we're going to hit it. Now, this is, let's compare and contrast this with what Iran and Israel have been doing. Right now Iran says, yeah, we're gonna hit Israel with a devastating blow. Yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna hit them with a devastating blow. Hey, stop talking about it and do it if that's what you're gonna do. Because, you're just making a threat. Hey, Nima, I'm gonna punch you. Yeah. You keep calling me up every week. I'm gonna punch you. And you go, I'm in Brazil. You're in the United States. Good luck. Go buy a plane flight, okay? It's that kind of chit chat, but this is different. This is, and I know you're not familiar with American baseball, but in the 1930s, there was this great baseball player by the name of Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth was known as someone who could hit a home run. A home run is when that ball goes flying out of the field, outside of the cancha. And there was one game where he stood there and he pointed at center field, telling the pitcher, I'm going to hit the ball there. And boom, he hit the ball out there. At least that's the story. That's what Putin's doing. He's now Babe Ruth. He's going, hey, that military base in Poland, I'm going to hit it. If wherever these missiles come from, if it's launched, if they use any of these Western missiles, he's going to hit back. He's going to say, okay, we're going to take out this military base. Get your people out. They got an hour. They got 2 hours. And normally you say, oh, if you tell me you're coming, we're going to be ready for you. We're going to shoot you down. We can't shoot this down. It's moving too fast. I mean, this is, when you look at it, it's almost like a directed energy weapon. It's just pulsing into the ground. We have this is a game changer. And what's so frustrating about it is most of the Western media doesn't appreciate it and isn't talking about it that way. It'd be like the Japanese press after Hiroshima saying, "Oh, there's a minor fire, no big deal." No, this is a big deal. And this is a big deal because I think it fundamentally changes the calculations for war. Russia can do something without having to go nuclear. And again, understand, this has the effect of the nuclear blast, but it doesn't cause radiation. It doesn't cause a cloud, a radioactive cloud, to rise up and spread across the atmosphere. It doesn't fill the atmosphere with dust particles that are going to prevent the sun from shining through and potentially inflict a global winter. And you don't have to launch it and hope it gets through. You can warn people, get out. We're going to destroy this place. And this USMASH manufacturing plant, it wasn't just one, it was like 1 square mile, 2 square miles. It was enormous, huge. And they were able to destroy it with precision. That's the thing people need to understand. So this was, we we really witnessed something remarkable.
It seems that the European countries are still confused with what has happened, or they don't want to understand what has happened.
Yeah, they are. Well, the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote about the 5 stages of grief. When you lose a loved one, when something that you care about dies, and the first stage is denial. That's where they are. They're in denial. The old saying, denial is not just a river in Egypt. It is this denial is one where they refuse to accept the fact they have no military options left against Russia, short of using nuclear weapons. And here's the problem. The actions and rhetoric from the West have convinced the Russians that the West intends to launch a preemptive nuclear strike. So right now things are on a hair trigger. And Russia, unlike the West, has a lot of options before going nuclear. The West has no options. We've basically run out of the conventional weapons that can be thrown into this fray. The United States doesn't have enough Patriot missiles. Let me knock that off. Sorry about that. The United States doesn't have enough Patriot missiles, doesn't have enough HIMARS. The Ukrainians don't have enough troops. So what you're looking at here is they keep talking about trying to escalate with conventional forces, and they don't have the conventional forces and weaponry to do so. So that leaves a nuke. But when you start talking about a nuclear war, and here you had this Admiral Buchanan the other day, who's with the Strategic Forces Command, go out in public and say, we're prepared to fight, and we're going to win a nuclear war against Russia. It's like, dude, shut up. If it's like with a firearm, you only take out a gun if your life is an imminent threat. If you don't have any, if you can't walk away, if you can't escape, and if you don't act with force, you're going to die, then in that circumstance, you pull the gun out and use it. The last thing you want to do is pull the gun out and say, yeah, man, Nima, I'm going to use this gun. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to get you, man. I got the gun here. And again, you go, I'm in Brazil. You're in Florida. Your gun won't shoot that far. So it's a meaningless threat, but it's a kind of threat that if I make it to you, at least in the state of Florida, what I've just done is committed the act of assault. And because I threatened to kill you, it could be considered aggravated assault. So, I mean, I've committed a crime against you. Well, that's what Europe and the United States are doing to Russia right now. They're threatening military action, but when they sit down and try to figure out who's going to actually do what, they're having trouble coming up with the what. What do we do? Yeah, we're going to send troops. No. Remember the F-16s, boy, they were going to save the day. Well,
You've talked about it for hours.
Yeah, they've been on scene for like 3 months. And they're basically, they may have been used to launch the ATACMS the other day, but they're not bringing them anywhere close to where they could be shot down by the Russians. Because they recognize Russia's got an air defense system that works, unlike what the West has, which is just a very expensive piece of technology that doesn't work.
Larry, as you've mentioned, there is no more room for any sort of escalations because of the threat of having a nuclear war.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that Russia is sending its message to the West. But do you think that who's in charge right now in Ukraine? Because they're responsible for what they're doing right now. And is the Biden administration still in charge do they have any sort of control or on the Zelensky administration, or they want, or they can do whatever they want to do?
No, they've got some control, but I think that's also creating some growing concern. Zelensky is becoming more and more out of touch with reality with each passing day, and now there's he's exchanging words and insults with people in the Ukrainian legislature, the Rada, and it really raises some. Plus, he's also at odds with the military, and the military is, they're taking some significant losses. Those at least who are not corrupt and seeing how fast they can, stuff their duffel bags with cash. So I think we're seeing an unraveling of the political structure in Ukraine right now. The United States and NATO are meeting on Tuesday, meeting tomorrow. And I think it's that "what the hell do we do now" meeting. Because everything that they've tried up to this point has failed. Now, they could risk saying, okay, we're going to escalate. We're going to call Russia's bluff. And that's the thing that so many of these people in the West don't get. Russia's not bluffing. They don't make idle threats. They tell you what they're going to do, and then they end up doing it. And this new weapon system that the Russians have, which is being, according to Putin, being mass produced now. So it wasn't just one experimental version and say, oh, that was nice. It was like the United States at the end of, when they decided to drop the atomic bombs on both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nobody else in the world knew that was it. The United States didn't have any other to use. It was the ultimate bluff in a poker game. Okay, I'm going all in. And the other side finally said, okay, we give up. We fold. We can't compete with you, not realizing that the cards that were played against them were not limitless. I think the next 2 weeks really are going to be extremely dangerous because the potential for miscalculation. But it's not just with the existing Biden administration. I saw this buffoon, Sebastian Gorka, who Trump has named as the head, his head counterterrorism guru. And this fool was saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna give Putin some options. Either he does what we want or else." You don't bully the Russians. They don't play that game. And Gorka is,
Is a British Hungarian? Is he American?
He was, I think, born in Hungary. I think he's a naturalized American now. But I said he's a buffoon because he says, "Oh, we'll just redouble support to Ukraine." With what? I mean, with what? Already we're cutting back. Okay, we can't give you all of our Patriots. In fact, you had the chief of the commander of Indo-PACOM, the guys in charge of the Pacific. He said, "Hey, pouring all this crap into Ukraine is making us come up short. We got to stop. We don't have limitless inventory, and the production manufacturing capabilities of the United States can't keep up with the use rate. So just stop with threatening stuff that you don't have, that you can't back up." So it is, Russia's sort of quiet right now. They're not out shooting their mouths off. Medvedev maybe, but that's Medvedev. But they're going to speak with action, not with words.
Here is what Sebastian Gorka said.
That the president has mentioned. He will say to that murderous former KGB colonel, that thug, who runs the Russian Federation, you will negotiate now, or the aid that we have given to Ukraine thus far will look like peanuts. That's how he will force those gentlemen to come to an arrangement that stops the bloodshed.
This guy is totally disconnected with the reality.
Yes, Sebastian, I got $50,000 that says that you are full of hot air. That'll never happen. The United States, I mean, it really is outrageous. I mean, this is cause for concern that Trump would select a knucklehead like that. Because, I mean, let's just start with from the basic point. If that's really your strategy, don't announce it in public. You know, if that's really what you're going to do. But if you think that's your strategy, make sure that you can actually come through with that aid. Oh, peanuts. We've given the billions, hundreds of billions of dollars. I think it's like $200 billion that have been poured into Ukraine and achieved what? It has achieved nothing except to expose the limitations of the U.S. military-industrial complex, the limitations of the U.S. military itself, the weakness, in fact. So, you know, yeah, we're gonna make it, look like peanuts. You know, Putin and other, intelligence, national security officials in Russia, I think I'll look at this guy and say, there's not going to be a change in American policy, number one. We thought we're going to give Trump a chance to see if there's going to be a change. He's putting this person in charge, and this is what he's saying. Batten down the hatches, boys. We're going to have to militarily defeat these guys. That's where it's headed.
Do we know who's in charge of picking these people? Because I don't believe that Donald Trump knows all of them, that he is picking these people. Who's in charge, Larry, in Washington, in Trump's team, and the way that he's trying
I don't know. I don't know.
Because it's unbelievable. You see the difference, the variety of these people, and how.
Well, the number that Trump ran on getting out of endless, needless wars. And yet the people that he's put into some key national security positions or proposed to nominate for those positions, whether it's Pete Hegseth at the Department of Defense, Marco Rubio at State Department, Michael Waltz as the National Security Advisor, and now Sebastian Gorka. There's another guy named Alex Wong. They're all war hawks. So, it will, we may be finding out that Trump didn't learn a damn thing from the last 4 years. And if that's the case, shame on him. Should have known better. But we'll find out. Because right now, the events, the combination of events between the war in Ukraine and then what may unfold in the Middle East are outside of the control of the United States. Trump assumes that the United States has some control here, has some ability to really influence and shape the outcomes. And he doesn't realize how limited our influence is, how reduced our influence is. So, they'll have a sort of a moment of, what do you mean? What do you mean we can't do that? Oh, what do you mean our aircraft carriers are not capable of deploying? Oh, what do you mean our aircraft carrier will be destroyed if we put it there? There'll be those kinds of moments of, oh, gee, I never knew that.
Let's assume that he's going to do whatever he have promised so far to do when he comes to power. Do you think, in terms of what's going on between the United States and Russia, do we need new arms control treaties. And how do you see in that direction? Is Donald Trump capable of doing this if we assume that he wants to solve the problem between the United States and Russia?
What it's going to, short answer is no. And let me explain why. To solve the problem with Russia is to be willing to step back and say, okay, look, Vladimir Putin is not a murderous thug. And we're going to stop talking about him that way. Vladimir Putin is president of a superpower, a country with nuclear weapons, a country with the strongest military in the world right now, hands down, a country that's on the cutting edge of technology, both military technology, particularly in the realm of hypersonic missiles, something the United States has failed to do. That Russia has continually been a leader in going to outer space, something that the United States has had to rely upon Russia for in order to transport its astronauts. So, one, we're going to start the relationship with one of mutual respect. Stop the name calling. And then recognize that Russia has made very specific and reasonable requests that NATO should stop its expansion, withdraw to the West, leave Russia alone. The West is unwilling to do that. And as such, Russia's not going to back off and not going to back down. And it's now got something it can do about it. Because, it was Trump, let's give Trump blame for what he did. He was president when they decided, okay, we're going to abandon the intermediate range nuclear forces agreement. Because they abandoned that agreement, Russia now has an intermediate range ballistic missile, but it's more than an intermediate range ballistic missile. It's a new kind of, let's call it, non-nuclear, nuclear equivalent technology. It's technology that can function like a nuclear bomb without all the nasty side effects. This is like finding that diet pill, which means, hey, you can eat all the donuts and cake you want, and you're not going to get fat. You might be inclined to use that thing a little more. So Russia's got some options that he doesn't have. Look, there needs to be this recognition of to get into arms control, but the West is the one who's walked away. The West has abrogated every single agreement. It was George W. Bush that walked away from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. Donald Trump, who walked away from the INF. START is set to expire, and Russia's now saying, you guys aren't serious about negotiating anything. We're going to go our own way. And I think part of their confidence in going that way is they've now developed technologies that the West doesn't have and the West cannot counter. And what was shown the other day is the Russians have strongly suggested they've got some other tricks up their sleeve, some other technologies to be unveiled that we haven't seen. So this, what will be required for Trump to do is something I don't think is politically possible in the United States. I watched Danny Davis the other day. He was on Fox News, the Fox News channel, and he was trying to explain to the anchor that the war in Ukraine's over. I mean, it's headed towards a denouement that is irreversible. And guys are, well, we can't. If we allow Russia to prevail, we've just shown that we're weak. And Danny said, dude, you don't understand. It's not about you being weak. It's about the Russians are winning. And the entire premise with a lot of the Western analysts, pundits, policymakers is that, well, if we don't stop Russia, they're going to take all of Europe. Russia's not going to take all of Europe. They have zero interest in all of Europe. Why do they want that freak show? The last thing they want are all these purple, pink-haired people running around with guys pretending to be women. They don't need that. They don't want that. They want to keep it away. They'd just as soon build a wall. You know, you crazy Europeans, you stay over there and do your thing. Leave us alone.
Yeah, unbelievable. Laurie, here is Sebastian Gorka talking about the situation in Gaza, in Israel.
The Trump administration swinging sanctions that brought the regime practically to the brink of economic collapse, and that's when the people can take over. In the meantime, the International Court of Human Rights has put out a warrant for Bibi Netanyahu and his Minister of Defense, because Jews, right? Jews. How interesting that the Arab wife of George Clooney was heavily involved in that decision. The left, they're the anti-Semites. No, sorry. They're the Jew haters. Just look at the campuses across America. Look at the squad. We stand by you, Israel. Do what needs to be done, especially when it comes to the biggest sponsor of state terrorism, Iran. God bless. Tune in tonight. Amazing show.
Yeah, the guy that's going to be terrorism czar for Trump doesn't know a damn thing about terrorism. What he just said there about Iran is wrong. It reflects ignorance, stupidity. Yeah, okay. I'm happy to debate you there, Sebastian. I've made this point repeatedly, but I'll reemphasize it for those that didn't catch it the first time. Go back over the last 10 years, and not a single year do you find that the top 10 groups listed by the State Department's Bureau of Counterterrorism, the top 10 terrorist groups in terms of actions, actual attacks, that those groups are supported by Iran, directed by Iran, funded by Iran, or trained by Iran. None of them. They say, well, Iran's been sponsoring Hezbollah and Hamas. Yeah, exactly. And we've got the statistics on that, thanks to the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that over the past 24 years, despite the claim that there's all this frequent terrorism, the reality is otherwise. If the definition of terrorism is the attack on civilians, the use of violence on civilians for political purposes, the most active terrorist in the Middle East is Israel, the state of Israel. They killed, prior to October 7th, they were killing 8 Palestinians for every single Israeli that died in an act of violence. 8-1. And now, since the advent of October 7th, and again, the number of 1,139 Israelis killed on October 7th, a significant portion of them, maybe as much as 50%, were killed by Israel. But let's just go and say that all were killed by Hamas. You've got approaching 50,000 dead. 50 dead Palestinians, women, children, elderly. For every dead Israeli, that's fair. That's proportional. Yeah, people like Gorka disgust me.
There is a lot of disagreement substantial disagreement between some of the European countries together with the United States and Canada. Here is what Lindsey Graham said in terms of Canada.
Allied Canada, Britain, Germany, France. If you try to help the ICC, we're going to sanction you.
Well, that means I want every ally, and you saw little Justin in Canada and his position. What should the penalty be?
We should crush your economy because we're next. Why can't...
He wants to crush everybody in this.
Yeah. He's like a malevolent Oprah Winfrey. You know, Oprah Winfrey had that television show where you have a car and you have a car and you have a car. Now, he's the evil version. You have sanctions. You have sanctions. You have sanctions. Yeah, let's just sanction everybody. And Tom Cotton was talking about invading the Netherlands. These people are clinically insane. The only way they can solve problems is through threat of force, coercion, blackmail, and there's diplomacy, willingness to actually entertain the fact that Israel is committing genocide, ignoring that. You know, you should have put up the clip of Lindsey Graham after the ICC announced that they had indicted Vladimir Putin for child trafficking. Man, did he love the ICC. You know, he was woo, 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 woo. You know, he was all in favor of it. Now, not so much. And this is more a critique of the ICC. While they are correct, you know, they can at least make a jurisdictional argument because the Palestinians are members. They've signed the treaty. They recognize the Treaty of Rome. But Israel hasn't. Russia hasn't. The United States hasn't. So, you know, going out and, you know, issuing arrest warrants for countries that are not signatories to these agreements is sort of a meaningless gesture. But it doesn't, you know, all this political theater doesn't change the reality of what's happening in Palestine and in Lebanon. Israel's out of control. They are killing civilians without regard. I mean, it's a nightmare.
Larry, what's so amazing about the conflict between Israel and right now Hezbollah, and comparing it to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, is we know during the conflict in Ukraine, Russia was announcing the people who were killed, injured, the level of the ammunition they've been using, how many targets they've hit, and all of this. Right now, we're witnessing the same attitude on the part of Hezbollah. On 23rd, they've announced 32 operations. Yesterday, 24th, 52 operations. And they just explain everything that they've done each single day. But we haven't seen any sort of that type of mindset on the part of Israelis. How do you see these type of, why are they announcing what has happened? What is the main goal of this type of just showing to each and everybody what has happened on their part?
You mean Hezbollah or Israel?
Hezbollah is announcing, they said 52 operation, what we've done, what we couldn't done, what were the targets, how many people were killed, how many people were injured on their part.
Yeah, well, they're trying, Israel's pretending that nothing's happening. If you monitor the Israeli media, and I make a point every day to look at Haaretz, Ynet News, Times of Israel, and Jerusalem Post, you wouldn't necessarily know there's a war going on. They keep it under wraps, and yet once in a while a story pops out that they are becoming war weary, that the Israeli recruits are not showing up, that they're starting to desert. I think part of this is both a psychological operation by Hezbollah, but also an actual report of, hey, here's what we're doing. We're actually hitting Israel. It was like 3 weeks ago, I remember, I think it was when Gallant was still on the job, they claimed, oh, we've destroyed 80% of Hezbollah missiles. And man, and they keep firing rockets and missiles into Israel every day since then, without stop. And, you know, with every rocket and missile comes in, Israel's got to make a decision whether to try to use some of its air defense system against it. And as they use it, you know, the odds are they're going to use up their inventory. So, and then if Iran decides to actually make good on its vow, its promise to retaliate, it actually hits and causes some significant damage to Israel. The pressure to expand the war in the Middle East for the United States is going to be great. And it comes at the very time that the United States is limited in its power. We like to think that we can do everything, but I can sit here. I'm 69 years old. I can sit here and fantasize about running a marathon. Yeah, I could do that, but then put me out on the street and I start running. Well, I got a bad knee, and I might last a couple of miles. I'm not going to go 26 miles. That's the United States.
Just to wrap up this session, we've learned that the Iranian advisor to the supreme leader of Iran said that they're going to hit Israel soon. And you've mentioned, when we start talking about the Russian attack, you've mentioned that Iran is, but you mentioned some sort of differences between Iran and Russia. But in my mind, Iranians were doing the same thing, because if you remember, with that attack on American airbase in Iraq, they've informed the Trump administration, we're going to attack that airbase. And I don't know, it was airbase, if I'm not mistaken. And they hit that airbase.
Right, but the big difference is they told them so that they'd know what was coming, so that they could actually defeat it, shoot it down, prevent much damage from being done. That's not what Putin's doing. Putin's saying, we're going to give you advance warning so you can clear people out, because we're going to destroy what we're going to hit. That's a big difference. The next time Iran strikes, they're going to do it without warning. They're done warning the West, warning Israel what they're going to do. They will, if they follow through with their threats. And I have no reason to doubt that Professor Marandi, who you've interviewed, is expressing a genuine belief that Iran is going to retaliate. They're not going to let this pass.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Larry, for being with us today. Great pleasure as always.
We'll talk to you later this week, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
See you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
my friend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.